Well, my art is music. And I was at that since I was very little. Before I studied any instrument, there was always music in our family. A music teacher came to where we lived to give my cousin piano lessons, and I sat there and I thought that was the thing that I really wanted to do. And she started teaching me. That's how it started. No, I wouldn't have had time to stop because I would be running for some appointment. You have to be in the right mood and give yourself enough time. Also, I thought that it was not fair to have him play his violin somewhere where the sounds of subway would drown him out. When they go to concert, they are ready to be there for the duration of a concert rather than running somewhere, not to be late for doctor's appointment and so on. Well, in the dictionary it says that it's expression of emotions, but there are various levels of art. A child who produces a little picture in kindergarten, it's his expression of art, and sometimes it's used by doctors in cases where a child has a trauma, so it does express emotion. The kind of art I'm interested in is the highest form, which is really expression of emotions by an individual who has a phenomenal talent, had the opportunity to develop that talent and to study what was produced by the previous generations. If you think of Renaissance art like Michelangelo. So he was one of the most talented people our planet ever produced. He was sculptor and painter, and he wrote pretty good poetry, but of course he studied since he was probably preteen. He went to study in a studio of somebody who came before him, and he looked at all the statues that were unearthed and admired of Greek and Roman architecture, and that was the final project. We have Sistine Chapel and Pietà and other works of his. Of course, first of all, it expresses emotions, but the fact is that most of the art was produced by necessity. People wanted to have a nice cathedral, so they had to study not only architecture but science, not to have the cathedral collapse. And of course, the same with music. In your books you see dedicated to such and such person. In many cases it's not because the composer was so fond of that person, but because the person paid well for these things. Well, when I was little, it was listening to music very much. And now it's just such a part of me that it's a necessity. I don't wait for inspiration. I just know that if I don't practice, if I don't touch the instrument for a day, so I feel terribly unhappy. If I really have to choose, I just look at all these books and say that there are so many of these things that I really want to play and I haven't touched it yet. So I better get to that piano and start working on more. This is the book that I bought just last week. These are Bach transcriptions, And this is what you played with your brother and with Tevye. Do you remember that? Now I have 2 daughters and a father who will be playing it. This is from Faculty of Music. This is me. I have very short hair, didn't have time. My goodness, it's very old. You can make this, either very boring if you are willing to teach same repertoire and just to teach to make money. But if you want to, if you look at each student as a completely unique individual and unique experience, it's very gratifying. From year to year I see them grow up, become my friends. That's very valuable. Also, when I see that they feel what I feel when they play, this is simply about the best part of my life. Besides, when I play myself, I still enjoy it enormously. It can, but somehow there are too many people who are much more interested of making themselves rich, and you hear all these terrible instances of people getting rich by terrible means. Maybe it was always like that, but at least art survives. And you know, the people who worked for art and were trying to make the world a better place, they still stay. Even if it's only like Lichnowsky, who was a patron of Beethoven. Only through Beethoven he lives, but he lives as a good person who made it possible for Beethoven to write and not worry about going out and digging ditches to earn a piece of bread. But now I wish that there were more people who would stick to arts and leave alone making themselves rich or powerful or try to somehow cause a war to have more territory and that way stay in history. I hope that they are forgotten as soon as they die. Well, it depends. It depends what kind of entertainment you find in your life. For instance, if I go to opera definitely is art. But do I go here to see an opera, to learn, or to be entertained? Probably both. With years, I tried to sort of listen to it with different ears. I listen to ensembles, I listen how the composer produces the effects that he wants. But at the same time, I find that I forget my day's worries and all the wrong notes that my students play when I listen to it. So in that way, it's entertainment for me. The most challenging part is that there is no perfection in art. But we always try to see how close we can get to it, although we know that it's not attainable. That's why, you know, students can get perfect mark on their math or theory, but performance, I question that. Because if I asked Beethoven to play me one of his sonatas and I gave him 100, he would laugh and say, "Oh, come on, lady, I can do it very much better. Here we go." And he would play it much better. I don't think that people who have no imagination can be artists. That's one of the prerequisites. They say that there is very few musical geniuses, for instance, and there are equally very, very few people who are totally 100% musical. So something can always be done with that, but how far can you go and how can you develop it? That is the hard part. I'm a very stubborn person, so if I get a student, I do my best to make them play well. And if I don't succeed, then I just say, well, you can't make an artist out of everybody.